So we are going to introduce a new segment that we are calling Why I'm a Fan. And in this segment, we'll have on different fans to tell us why they're a fan and then to also share some stories about their experiences. So today we have Justin Hicken here with us. He's Justin_Hicken on Twitter, so give him a follow. And he's going to tell us why he's a fan.
Yeah.
So let's
We
start with
first
that.
want to know why you're a fan and when you went to BYU.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. Great to be here. I attended BYU. I did undergrad from 02 to 09 with a mission in between there. So 5 years total. And I've just always loved sports. And as soon as I came to BYU, I adopted all BYU sports.
Awesome. And do you have a story to tell us from...
A real good one.
Yeah,
Really
absolutely.
good
So I don't tell this very often because it can tend to go pretty long. But this involves something that happened back in 2009 when BYU traveled to play University of Oklahoma in Jerry's house in Dallas. And the background of the story is probably a few months before the game happened, I was in Provo, just driving around town, and I come up to a stoplight, and all of a sudden there's Max Hall pulling up next to me on my right. And the ironic thing was he was driving a motorcycle, and I don't think he had a helmet on, which I don't know about that, but I saw him and I thought, I have to say something. I don't know what. So I rolled down my window and I just, probably stupid, but I said, "Hey, Max, I need you to beat Oklahoma for me." And he looked at me and he goes, "We're going to do it." So I'll just leave that there.
Some nice foreshadowing there.
So a friend of mine, Britt Balcom, he was able to get some tickets to the game. And he had reached out to me and said, "Do you want to go?" And I had just finished up undergrad. I didn't have a job lined up yet, so I was looking for work. Probably couldn't afford the trip and hadn't really thought much about it. But he said, "Look, I got the ticket for you. It's on me. I'm going to drive down. I'm going to stick around and do some business and then hit the game the following week against Tulane." So he was going to go over to Louisiana after that. He said, "But look, if you want to catch a ride with me, I got a place to stay. I got a ticket for you." He said, "You just have to figure out a way back home."
Can't say no to that.
Yeah, and you don't want to miss that if we beat Oklahoma.
So I thought about it, and I thought, you know what, I got to go. I've heard great things about this stadium, and who knows, if BYU pulls off the upset, I'll be kicking myself if I missed it.
Right.
So the one thing I had to figure out was the ride back, and at this point, it was just a week or 2 weeks before the game. Still probably expensive to try to get a plane ticket, so I had to get a little creative, and I went to the ride board on campus
Good old
in
ride
the
board.
Wilkinson Center.
Yeah, the kids these days might not know, but it's an actual board where you could get rides. Now it's online, but it's a thing. It was a relic in the Wilk.
Yeah, I'd walked by it hundreds of times while I was a student. Never actually used it while I was a student, but all of a sudden I felt I had to check it out. And so there were these little pieces of paper where you'd have a person's name and contact information, and they would say if they were looking for passengers or if they were looking to go someplace. So I find somebody that was going from Provo to Dallas, and I called him, and I remember the guy's name was Ralph.
Distinctive name.
A little unique for somebody my age. He was my age. And I asked him, I said, "Listen, I'm just looking for a ride back. I've got a ride down," and didn't know if he would take me or not, just because I wouldn't be there to help him out on the way down. But he told me, he goes, "Yeah, we've got room. We've got a 99 Dodge Durango. We'll take you." And he said, "You're the sixth person that's going to be in our car on the way back, so why don't you go ahead and pull out that slip of paper? We'll cap it at that. That way no one else will call." So I did it. And
Some more important foreshadowing there.
exactly. So we take off, Britt and I take off, and we decided to split the trip. We stopped in Albuquerque, and an interesting thing happened there that night. While we're at the hotel and I'm getting out of the shower, I reach for a towel, and I knock my flip phone off of the ledge into the toilet. I grabbed it real quick and got it out of there, but it was...
Submerged.
It was not working right away. Luckily, the following day we were able to revive it. We did the bag of rice trick.
bath.
It works.
But
Sometimes temporarily.
yeah, so we made it to Dallas, and let me tell you, the stadium, it was absolutely immaculate. It was gorgeous.
Brand new, wasn't it?
Brand new. This was the first ever sporting event to be held in the stadium.
We had forgotten that.
Yeah. So this is before, I mean, that season, the Cowboys were going to be playing there, but this kicked it off. So it was pretty awesome to be able to be there for that. And we go in, and it was like, I told people it's like the Emerald City on Wizard of Oz. I mean, just absolutely immaculate, a perfect 72 degrees, just gorgeous inside. And so the tickets that we had were on the field level. They were pretty good seats.
Yep.
But Britt's a pretty ambitious guy, and he wanted to try to one-up that or get an even better spot.
One-up field level, however you do that.
Yeah. Well, the way the stadium's designed, there actually is a space below the field level. I guess that's more of a true field level, but there's a bunch of luxury suites that surround the field, and in fact, they're probably like a foot, maybe a foot and a half below the actual field level. So we go down there. We actually spent some time in one of those. We saw, Tom Homo walked by, Brian Santiago. They told Britt, they said, we knew you'd be in one of these. Well, we weren't in one. We just poked our head in one. And eventually, we made our way over on the same level. There was an open bar area. It was right on the 50-yard line. And Britt goes up to the bartender and he hands him a $20 bill and says, hey, we're just going to be getting some Sprites, but we'll be coming back. So we just sat there all game and sipped on Sprite refills.
Oh.
And
important to note.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was like a really cool spot. I mean, we were right there. We were just a few yards away from the BYU sideline. And there's a goofy picture that I got with Austin Collie and Reno Mahe before the game started. There was a bunch of BYU alumni there who had come out. I know Brian Keel was there, probably a handful of others. But the game starts, and we're hanging in there. We're doing all right. And right before the end of the half, Bradford gets injured.
Mm-hmm.
I remember.
And I'm thinking,
dark day for Oklahoma.
I'm thinking we might have a chance here. And during the game, I've got a picture of this too, but Jerry Jones actually came down from wherever he sits up top, and he was down below in this area. And so I was able to grab a picture with him.
Put that up.
And as the game's winding down, Britt and I had kind of looked at each other, and it was just kind of understood, hey, if we pull this off, we're rushing the field, no questions. And there was really only a little 3-foot fence between us and the field. However, one thing we didn't think about was, and we realized this after the fact, after we had been out there, but it was pretty difficult for anybody else to get out on the field if they wanted to go out there, just because they would have had to drop down about 15 feet into the patio area, these luxury suites, then run to the end of the patio over the fence.
Well, and the majority of them were Oklahoma fans anyway.
Exactly. I'd say there was the place held about 75,000. We probably had 12 to 15,000 BYU fans there. So all of a sudden we score the go-ahead touchdown. We hold them. They miss a field goal, and I see a little opening between these two metal benches. There was like a Gatorade tub out there or something, and Britt says, okay, I'm following you. So I hop the fence, I run straight out there. The first thing I do is hug a few players, I high-five a few of them, kind of grab some bellies and shook them.
Sure, rushing field activities.
And at that point, it's kind of pandemonium. I mean, your heart's going, and I had to do a little, semicircle lap around the open field with my hand in the air, the number one, and it was just, everything was almost slow motion for me. Yeah. And it was just this silence in the stadium because all these Oklahoma fans
couldn't believe it.
They couldn't believe it. They were stunned what just happened.
You compared it to the Nebraska silence after the Hail Mary.
Exactly, yeah. It was just, we were loving it, but it was just an awkward, you're like, why isn't everybody else loving it? And then, so I'm out there, and then after I do that, you're just kind of looking around, you're thinking, well, what's next? Well, I see Bronco getting interviewed by ESPN, so I tell myself, well, why not? I got to try to get in this shot. So I go up behind him, And I'm jumping up and down, yeah, number one. And they have some type of security guard there who's making sure that the interview goes smooth. And he kind of pushes me out of the way. And I come back. The second time he grabs me. And he goes, hey, what are you doing here? Where's your field pass? And I didn't know what to say. I was like, oh, it's... And he just kind of shows me away. He says, get out of here. So I leave. And I'm still just running around, jumping up with players, hugging them, high-fiving them. Later, I didn't really know this at the time, but Max Hall had just finished up an interview after they interviewed Bronco. And as he's walking away, I give him a good game slap as I run by. Well, that was captured on camera. So that's
So
all of a
everybody
sudden,
saw that.
Flip phone
all of a
starts blowing
sudden the
up.
phone starts blowing up. Everybody at home watching the game's like, oh, that's Hicken. What's going on? What's he doing out there? And I'm just having a blast. And then the players all go over into the corner of the stadium where the majority of the BYU fans had been sitting. And they start to do the haka. And I'm just loving life. I'm watching them. And at this point, I'd probably been on the field about 12 to 15 minutes. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I feel two sets of hands grab my biceps. And I turn around, and it's stadium.
Max Hall.
It's stadium security. It was not Max Hall. And I look at him, and I'm thinking, oh, gee, really? Like, I've been out here forever. What's the big deal?
Yeah.
But I wasn't alarmed. I just thought, well, these guys are going to escort me off the field. You know, they
That
probably
would be it.
don't see a pass on me. They realize I probably shouldn't be out here. So they walked me over to the edge of the field, and that's when my heart dropped, because all of a sudden, standing there waiting was an officer with cuffs open.
Oh, shoot.
And as I was walking off, all the BYU fans who saw the security taking me off, they started booing. But I don't think they knew what was about to happen to me.
No.
So after I get put in cuffs, my big concern is that nobody else other than Britt is with me out here. And I don't know how this process is going to work, of what's going to happen to me next. So I tell the officer, I say, can we please call the one other person that I'm out here with so they know how to help get me out? So the officer agrees to that, which I was very thankful for. They took everything out of my pockets, including my flip phone that I had. And luckily, yeah, that was working again after accidentally knocking it into the toilet. And they called Britt, and the officer just puts the phone up to my ear, and he goes, okay. And I say, Britt, listen, I don't know what's going to happen to me, but I've been arrested. I said, I'm going to put you on the phone with the officer. He's going to tell you how to get me.
Oh my God.
So the officer takes the phone, explains some stuff to him. I wasn't really paying attention. And then they take me in the back where there was a holding cell in the stadium. Very nice, brand
First
new.
one to use it.
But they take some fingerprints, and they put me back in there. And I was in there for probably an hour, hour and a half,
Gosh.
with 7 or 8 other
Oh.
Oklahoma fans
Oh.
who had all been, what I discovered, pulled back or arrested for public intoxication.
Huh, which was not what you were in there for.
Yeah, so I'm the only blue shirt in there. So after that time goes by, they take us out, and the whole time I'm asking questions like, okay, what's going on now? They say, well, we're going to transfer you to Tarrant County Jail. And I'm thinking, oh, like, for some reason, I guess I thought that I was going to get out of the stadium holding cell, and that was going to be it.
Well, that should have been sufficient punishment.
Yeah,
For being
you
on the
would
field.
think. I was
Oh, my
was
goodness.
pretty scared, but so they load us into this van, almost like a construction style van.
Oh my gosh.
Like
a jail transportation
Yeah,
van.
no windows in the back, like bench seats on the sides. And the irony of while we're getting in the van is we're in the van, and I'm up kind of close to the driver, but there's like a graded area
Right.
between me and the driver, and I see the football team loading onto the bus, BYU football team. I tell the driver, and there's Tom Holmo. I tell the driver, I say, hey, listen, I'm not supposed to be here. There was a mistake. If you could just tell, that's my athletic director. If you could tell him that one of his fans is in this van, I'm sure he'll do what he can to get me out. So this driver, it was a woman, she goes, oh, I'll let him know.
Oh.
And I go, oh, thank you.
Great.
So everybody gets loaded in. We start driving out, and we're coming up by the bus, and we just drive right by the bus.
So she was being smart.
And I look at her and I go, what happened? You said you were going to talk to him. She's like, just gives me the smile. So we get to we drove probably 25, 30 minutes. We get to the jail.
She maybe thought you were drunk.
Who knows? I mean, she thought I was a troublemaker for sure. Yeah. We get there. They take, the classic mugshot. In the meantime, I'm kind of smiling because...
Do you still have your mugshot?
Yeah,
we'll try and find that and put that
I
up.
never found the mugshot. No. I looked for it. I could never find it. If you can find it...
Did you smile?
I did smile because in my mind I'm thinking, this is so ridiculous. Like, technically, yes, I'm guilty, but I'm not... This is silly.
I mean, sure. Okay, we'll try and find that. No promises.
So they put me in a holding cell there.
Another holding cell.
And
this one probably not as nice.
Not as nice, unfortunately. There was maybe like 15 people in it. 3 or 4 of them were passed out. And these, it's just like, all you have in there is cinder block walls, stone floor. You've got like the metal toilet in the corner.
Yeah, it's a holding cell.
Yeah,
for criminals.
I was... Part of me, like I said, was just laughing because it was ridiculous, but the other part of me, I was very concerned because I thought, I'm under a time restriction here where I'm supposed to be getting a ride back from ride board people, from Ralph.
Or else you're stuck there forever.
And I don't know when I'm getting out of here. I don't know how this is going to work. All my trust is in Britt that he can get me out of here. So
okay, but how much do you trust him? Can I ask that? I mean, were you concerned that it was in his hands?
I was a little concerned, but I think on a percentage-wise, maybe somewhere around 70 to 80% confident that he would
at
take
least
care
do
of
something,
me.
Figure something out.
But it is a scary feeling knowing that like everything depends on this one friend of yours, and and you have no way of getting a hold of him. So,
oh my gosh.
Probably another hour and a half went by. In the meantime, they'd given me some prison-issue sandals to wear.
Because you were barefoot!
Well, luckily I was able to get my original sandals before they took me to the stadium holding cell. But when I got to the Tarrant County Jail, I told them, I said, it's okay, I've got my own sandals. And they said, no, you can't wear your own footwear. You either wear ours or you go barefoot.
Who knows what you're hiding in your sandals?
And they said, trust me, you do not want to go barefoot. So I took their sandals. So an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours goes by. In the meantime, I'm in the cell with all these guys. I was the only BYU blue shirt in there. There was a handful of Oklahoma shirts in there, and then just some other random people in there. But most of it, I could tell most of the people were in there for some type of alcohol-related incident.
Yeah.
So this is kind of funny. I'll try to speed it up. But as time goes on, you kind of naturally started to do the people were like, well, what are you in here for type that you see on TV shows. So we're going around the room. It gets to me. And that was really when I found out that all these Oklahoma fans had been drinking, and that was why they had gotten arrested. It gets to me, and I tell them, I said, told them my story. I said, after BYU won the game, me and my buddy ran onto the field, and that's when they got us. And it was dead silent in the cell. And all of a sudden, one of the Oklahoma fans speaks up, and he goes, wait a minute. He says, you mean to tell us that OU lost? And it was the first time I had realized, everybody that got arrested for being drunk got arrested for being drunk during the game, not after the game was done. I was the only guy that got arrested after the game was over. So naturally, when BYU took the lead with, what was it, a minute and a half to go, or under 2 minutes, they had no idea. I mean, some of them might not even have known that Sam Bradford got injured. So
probably not.
It never occurred to them that Oklahoma might lose that game. And I looked at them and I said, guys, I said, I wouldn't be here if it didn't happen. And
were you not worried they were going to beat you up?
I was a little concerned. I was like, these guys might be really mad. Well, so then there was another pause. They're all looking at me while I say this. And then a guy goes, nah, he's just pulling our leg. They all start laughing. They're like, "There's no way you lost to
Because
BYU."
that's the funny part about
Yeah.
this, that they
Right.
lost, not that you're in jail for literally doing nothing.
And and no one believed it. And I said, "Guys, okay, fine, believe what you want to believe." But I said, I promise, I would not be in here with this shirt as a BYU fan if my team didn't win and I didn't rush the field. So that was the end of that. The next part of the story, like I mentioned, after about an hour and a half, 2 hours, thankfully, there's Britt. I see
Oh
him
my gosh.
in kind of the office area.
Okay, so you can see the lobby.
And I'm seeing, okay, here's Britt. I'm finally getting out of here.
Right.
Things are going to go back to normal. This was just a little hiccup, and I'll get it figured out.
Yeah.
Britt's at the front desk. I look down. Britt has handcuffs on.
What?
And now I'm freaking out even more. And in my mind, I'm thinking, how did this happen? Because I got arrested, and then I called him, and he answered the phone. And what happened? So,
Because he was on the field,
'Cause
too,
he was
right?
on the
Okay,
field,
but you
too.
talked to him.
so luckily, and I'll say this, there were actually 3 holding cells right there in the front area of this
Okay.
jail. Britt, the gate opened, or the door opened to our holding cell, and Britt came into my holding cell, which I was very grateful for, because he could have gone into a different one.
Wow. Tender mercy.
So he came into my holding cell. First thing I knew is I give him a big hug, and I was just happy. I was happy to see him. But then I said, "What happened?" So he goes on to explain. After the win, he follows the team into the locker room, and he was able to blend in a lot more than me.
Okay.
He says the team took a knee and had a post-game prayer, gave thanks for the victory, and then he went out to the parking lot, and he had written down the address of where they were going to take me, and he plugged it in his GPS, and he came out to get me. Well, a bunch of different factors go into it being an unfamiliar area.
Okay.
He's maybe not thinking straight because of the win. He's excited.
Sure, adrenaline pumping.
And-
his friend's in jail.
And he's getting closer to the destination on the GPS, and right in front of him, he sees a police car.
Oh, God.
And in his mind, he's just thinking, "Oh, this must be going to the jail where Justin is. I'll just kind of follow this." And well, he follows the car into a gate had opened. It was a gated police
Oh my
vehicle
gosh.
only parking lot. That wasn't the problem, though. Britt explains to me that he gets out of the car. He parks his car there. He gets out. And as he's walking up to the jail, there's a small, 3 or 4 officers standing outside. And they see him and they go, hey, buddy. They call to him. They say, "What's going on?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm just coming to get my friend." Well, one of the officers asks him, they go, "Well, why don't you come over here?" So he goes over there and they ask him, they said, "Have you been drinking tonight?" And unfortunately, Britt just wasn't thinking, not super sharp at this moment in time. He tries to be witty.
Oh,
and
no.
he says,
Nope, not the time. Nope.
he says, "Well, not enough to get me in trouble." Well, now the officers are curious. So the same one who called him out says, "Hey, hold it right here. We're going to run a little test."
Oh, God.
So according to Britt, he does the field sobriety, the finger,
Sure,
don't
yeah.
move your
I
head.
don't think I could pass that.
So Britt fails once, and he says, "We're going to try this one more time."
A little too much spray?
Britt fails again.
All those refills.
So the officer arrests Britt
Oh
and
my
charges
God.
him with public intoxication.
But he's
Right
not
outside
drunk.
the jail?
Not drunk. Yeah, right outside the jail. And they had
Wow.
Britt, and now he was in the cell with me. And now we're trying to figure out, okay, we're the only 2 people that
No
we
one knows
know
you're there.
in this state, and we're both in jail behind bars.
And your ride's
How
leaving.
do we get out? And I've got the clock ticking because my ride's leaving.
It looks bad right now.
It was very, I was starting to get stressed out. Britt was laughing. He was having a fun time because as much as I thought
Maybe he was drunk.
my reason for being ridiculous was in there, he was 100% innocent, even though I was technically guilty for a ridiculous charge. But so how it worked out was, so sorry, I know we're taking a long time here, but they told me with my charge, I could get out with a $750 bail.
Okay, not bad.
Not bad.
I mean, comparatively.
Yeah, but here's the tricky part. The contingencies were for my bail, it had to be cash only, and somebody else had to do it. For Britt, it didn't have to be cash. His bail was only $350, and he could do it himself.
Okay.
But because it was an alcohol-related charge when he wasn't drinking, he had to wait 4 hours to quote-unquote sober up before he could even get out. So all of a sudden we're formulating a plan. We're thinking, okay, here's what has to happen. We have to wait this time period. Then Britt, we're gonna bail you out, and then you're gonna have to somehow either get a wire or a bail bondsman or whatever, because no one had $750 cash.
I don't carry any cash.
So that was the plan. Well, while we're changing, another officer comes up and goes, "Wait a minute, why are you having all these guys change?" And he goes, "Well, we're gonna send them in the back." And he goes, No. He goes, "Most of these guys are getting out tonight. They're public intox, whatever." So he tells everybody, he goes, "Anybody who's getting out tonight, don't worry about changing." So a lot of the guys didn't change. The guys who did change were sent in the back. And in my mind, I'm thinking, I'm not going in this back area, wherever that is. I'm getting out tonight. So we go back into the main cell. The time finally comes where Britt gets out. So he did not have any credit cards on him. He just had cash, but he didn't have $750 cash.
No.
So I was the only one who had a credit card. So I used my card to bail out Britt.
Okay.
Then he goes, "Well, Justin, I'm going to have to let me take your stuff so that I can go figure out how I'm going to get the wire or talk to a bail bondsman or whatever." Keep in mind, this is like wee hours of Sunday morning. So I sign away all my stuff to him while the officer there, this lady, is looking at me. She's just shaking her head. She's like, "You really going to sign your stuff away to this guy?" And I was like, "Look, he's my friend. You got to trust me." She's like, "I've heard that before." And so,
I'm sure she has.
So Britt takes off, and she's just shaking her head. She's like, "You ain't never going to see that white boy again." And
I like this accent.
I told her, I said, I will see him. He's my friend. He's going to get me out. So Britt's gone. It's, 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning.
Did you sleep?
No, I couldn't sleep.
No,
I was exhausted. I was up. It was just hard cinder block floors. You're just sitting on the ground.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, there's me and only 2 other people left in the holding cell because everybody had either gotten out or they'd gone into the back. In the meantime, there was a shift change of the police officers. So when I first got there were some officers laughing and joking like, "Wait a minute, this guy ran on the field." No big deal. Well, these new officers come in, and as far as they know, I was burying a body last night. They have no idea why I'm in there. So the new officers come in, and they see me and 2 other guys there, and this one guy goes, "Okay, this is ridiculous. Why are you guys still here? We're moving you guys to the back." And I was kind of scared. I was like, "Crap, what is this back? What's going to happen?" Well, we go into the same little narrow hallway to change into the orange suits, because I guess if you're going in the back, you have to be in the orange suit. So we're changing, and I'm not thinking, and I'm tired, and so I'm putting the shirt on over my garment top, and this officer looks at me and he goes, "Hey, that comes off." And I'm just confused because I'm thinking, wait a minute, the other guy didn't have a problem, but this guy does. And I'm exhausted, and I look at him, and I shouldn't have done this, but I look at him, I go, "Oh, sir." I said, "Please." I was like, "It has some religious significance." And I could tell he's getting really upset. So he shuts his door, and I hear heavy footsteps. He comes around to the door where we came in. And he opens up the door, and he throws the 2 guys with me to the side, and he grabs me, and he throws me up against the wall. And at this point, he's got his face right behind mine. I'm like this up against the wall. His mouth is in my ear, and he says, "It comes off now, otherwise I'm gonna pepper spray your expletive."
What?
And so I'm sitting there, I'm exhausted. I'm just thinking, I can't believe this is happening. And in my mind, quickly, I think, well, if the Lord brought down the prison walls of Ammonihah, surely he can bring down the prison walls of Tarrant County if he wants. But in the meantime, I'm going to take the garment top off and just go bottoms and throw the oranges on, and we'll be good. So I change. Before we go in the back, this guy had pushing a little cart, he brought by breakfast. and it was your little elementary school cardboard, your 2-ounce juice
tray and
your 3-ounce milk and a muffin. That was it. Those were it. So we had those. We get taken in the back. We go into the back, and there's like 50 guys back there. It's just kind of this general open area with some lunch tables. And as I'm walking back there, I notice, like, I'm a little scared because I don't know what's back here. But the first thing I noticed, there was 3 distinct groups. And it was separated by race. Not to focus on that, but there was your Hispanic group, your African American group, and then your white group. And I was just like, well, okay, I guess I got to go over here. I guess this is my group. I didn't know what the rules were or anything like that. And so I'm back there, and it's 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and I'm just sitting there thinking, when is this nightmare going to end? And luckily, it did end. This guard came in and he called off a bunch of names. The first time my name wasn't called, but the second time he came in, it was. And Britt had come through. He was able to get me out. What I didn't know, though, was that when Britt originally got out at 3 or 4 in the morning, his car had been towed. Because it was in a police vehicle only parking lot.
Of course.
So he's hoofing it on foot to this tow yard. Gets there, is able to get some cash wired, get it. He was able to come back and get me, and I got out of there. And this is all wonderful and great, but now I'm thinking, it's like 11:30. I'm just like, my ride. So I was able to get all my belongings, but at this point, my phone hadn't been charging. So the phone was dead.
It was already on the fritz.
Luckily, the little piece of paper that I had pulled from the ride board
Your pocket.
cubby was in my pocket.
Oh my gosh.
So I use Britt's phone. I call Ralph. And I have no idea what to expect, but I get a hold of Ralph, and I say, Ralph, it's Justin. I said, I'm so sorry. Have you guys left yet? And he goes, oh, yeah, we were wondering about you. We couldn't get a hold of you. He goes, you know what? We all slept in. We're just grabbing some breakfast at Burger King, but we were going to hit the road in 10 minutes. Where are you? I said, I'm here. He goes, yeah, we'll wait for you. So luckily I was able to meet up with them. I waited till we were a couple hours down the road to explain to them why they couldn't get a hold of me, because I figured the best thing to say when you first meet people is not like,
don't lead with it.
I just got out of jail. That might scare them off. But so that's kind of the gist of the story. There's more to it, but I'll just leave it at that. But the drive home was a little adventurous as well, but maybe we can save that for another time. So that's the story of doing time for my Cougs.
That is, as true blue as it gets. The Lord did not bring down the prison walls, but He provided. You made it. You got your ride.
Learned your lesson, maybe? Would you
Was there a lesson to be learned? Would you rush the field again? That's the question.
Absolutely. I was charged with a criminal trespass. I did have to hire an attorney. Unfortunately, I had to go back out to Texas to appear in court. There was no way around it. Ultimately, the charges were first reduced, and then dropped. I had to pay, it was like $100 fine. I had to do technically 100 hours of community service, but when my bishop heard the story, he just said, oh, you've done enough service.
That's a good bishop.
You've done enough service in the church and on your mission and all this stuff. So he signed it off. And when it was all said and done, I calculated missing work, flying back out there, all this stuff, probably cost me about $1,000. But it's a story that I've got forever, and there it is.
It's a pretty good story to be able to tell.
Yes, as if you were going to forget that win, now you never will.
Yeah.